All right, so on today's video, I want to make a quick recording, just going over some research we're looking at here. It's a review paper that talks about long COVID. I should mention I'm not a medical professional, so please take anything I talk about with a grain of salt. I am just an individual person dealing with ME/CFS, long COVID. So I just wanted to look at the research and kind of create a video to talk about what these folks found. It's a review article. And so I just kind of want to go over some of the main themes of this review, and hopefully you could take away some nuggets from it. Also in this video, I'm going to talk about some of the specific findings they found for long COVID, and how I actually have some blood work that sort of verifies some of their findings. Anything I talk about, please just note that I'm just an everyday individual dealing with long COVID and not a medical professional. So I might say some terms, or I might get certain things wrong. So I just wanted to totally make that clear. So let's go ahead and take a look. So this article itself is called Long COVID, Mechanisms of Disease, Multisystem Sequelae, and Prospects for Treatment. And this is in the Journal of Immunological Medicine. So at a high level, this article this review is going over the different sort of mechanisms that they found for long COVID, which if you've been dealing with long COVID, sometimes the question is, what's actually going on, right? And I know there's not, for the most part, a definitive answer on this. This is exactly what's causing everything, and this is how you treat it. But it seems like there's a lot of dots that are starting to get connected on different systems that are involved, etc. So in this article itself, if we kind of scroll down, and I'd recommend taking the time to read it. It's definitely interesting, but and if you're anything like me, sometimes pictures paint are like worth 1,000 words kind of concept, right? So if you go down in some of these different articles and studies, a lot of times they put together really helpful little charts that can kind of show you different systems involved, and it makes it really easy to look at. So, but more specifically, if you kind of scroll down to page 6, it talks about basically 6 different potential mechanisms involved and even treatments associated with them. So for instance, you'll see like number 1, it talks about incomplete viral clearance. So that's kind of the idea of maybe the virus itself is persisting in the body, and they talk about different antigens, or the spike antigen persistence that continues on in the body. And then they talk about also your GI tract is potentially being a harbor where the virus can continue to sit and potentially replicate. They talk about different antiviral agents, etc. But here's kind of more specifically what I want to talk about is the neurological aspect. So if you're anything like me, dealing with ME/CFS or long COVID, it's taken an absolute toll on your ability to function cognitively. So like I've been dealing with long COVID roughly about maybe 3 years, give or take, and it's really progressed year after year. So year 1, I would say I probably lost maybe like 20% of my cognitive abilities where they used to be. Year 2, I probably, was operating at maybe 65, 70%. And then I'm on year 3 now. And I would say I'm probably at, 40% cognitive ability compared to where I was pre-long COVID ME/CFS. So it's definitely been pretty brutal. So, but here's the interesting thing. When we look in this study, I'm just going to do a little Control F real quick. One of the things that they found was, and one of the mechanisms as well that they're looking into is specifically autoimmunity, right? Kind of a post-viral autoimmune condition. And there's another article that I should record. It was done by a researcher named Datis Karazian, great guy. And he actually showed that there's a decent level of what they call molecular mimicry, which I'm not smart enough to really describe that to you. But basically, from his article, he showed that, from my understanding, that the spike protein can cross-react with different human tissue, meaning your body, as it's creating antibodies against the spike protein can look similar enough to other tissues in the body where your body can then incorrectly start attacking its own tissue, if that makes sense. Again, this is a whole talk in and of itself, which I'm not intelligent enough to explain to you. But long story short, if we look in this article itself, we go to page 11, it talks about, for instance, I'll highlight here, it says neurological complications in long COVID are linked to immune dysregulation. Elevated cytokine levels in serum and CFS may drive microglial activation and neuronal injury, even in the absence of detectable viral RNA. And here's specifically what I'm talking about. Autoantibodies against brain-specific antigens, myelin basic protein, myelin oligodendrocyte, glycoprotein, synapsin, and cerebellar protein 2 are elevated in long COVID patients. Okay, so these are different target sites in your brain that regulate cognitive function. What I want to specifically highlight is myelin basic protein. So again, I am not a neurologist, and all of this is still relatively new to me, and I'm trying to figure it out. But from my basic understanding, myelin basic protein has to do with I guess the protein surrounding neurons itself and providing almost like a fatty layer sheath that allows your neurons to conduct signals to each other. I mean, this is a really layman's way, I think, of explaining it. And if your body starts attacking that myelin basic protein, you could start to have, a decent amount of dysfunction when it comes to your cognitive abilities. Now, here's the interesting thing. I want to actually go and show you blood work that I did back in 2022 when I first started to realize that what I was dealing with basically massive cognitive dysfunction that never went away. I mean, massive fatigue, all of the GI problems, all of the major symptoms of long COVID. I got some blood work done. One of the pieces of blood work that I got done was a viral panel. And if you look here, one of the viruses that were in the abnormal range was HHV-6, which specifically, I'll show you how it relates here in this article itself. So let's go to where it says HHV-6. And then I'll tie it back into the autoantibodies you're just looking at. So in this article on page, let's take a look. What page is this? 7. It says clinically symptoms of long COVID such as fatigue and neuropsychiatric complaints resemble Epstein-Barr related conditions like infectious mononucleosis. EBV and HHV-6 have also been linked to ME/CFS, which shares pathophysiological features with long COVID. So it's basically it's tying in the virus HHV-6 with the neuropsychiatric manifestations that they've shown to be present in ME/CFS. And again, when you look at my blood work specifically, I was active for a positive HHV-6 infection. This is called IgM. Now there's IgM and IgG. Again, this is me trying to explain to you from someone who's not a medical professional. But from my understanding, if you have a virus that shows up on a panel with an equivocal amount of IgG antibodies, that doesn't necessarily mean you're dealing with an acute infection. That just means sometime in the past you've dealt with that infection, your body produced antibodies for it, and you may not be currently dealing with it. IgM is more of like an acute measurement from my understanding. So at the time of this blood test, which was in 2022, I was positive IgM HHV-6, which is interesting. Now, also in this study, and I don't know if I can necessarily find it right now, let's take a look though real quick. So it also says another study reported EBV reactivation in 42.6% of, 42.6% of long COVID patients, HHV-6 in 25%, and both in 32.4%. So about a quarter of people with long COVID showed reactivation for HHV-6, which is interesting. And it goes on to say reactivated patients show higher levels of fever, headache, neuropsychiatric symptoms, fatigue, and musculoskeletal pain. So for you, maybe specifically, maybe some level of a viral panel could be worth taking a look at. Again, maybe this is something you bring up with your physician of just seeing if there's any viruses that have been activated, specifically EBV and HHV-6, because if so, that might explain some of the neuropsychiatric or fatigue or muscle pain related symptoms. Now, in this article itself, I don't know if I can find it like I was just making mention to, but HHV-6 has shown to have some level of cross-reactivity with myelin basic protein. So if we go to this article again, this one section where it talks about myelin basic protein, it showed again that elevated autoantibodies against myelin basic protein could explain some of the neuropsychiatric and chronic fatigue-like symptoms. Now, when I go into my blood work, again, so this is, I showed you the HHV-6. The study talked about in a quarter of patients that's elevated. For me, that was correct, at least on my blood work. And then if we go to the myelin section, I got some blood work done that actually screened for different antibodies. So this test itself is from a company called Cyrex. I have no financial incentive, and in fact, there's no way for me to make money. I'm not a medical practitioner, but it's called Cyrex, so Cyrex, and this was called the Array 5. So they have different panels to be able to measure antibodies, and the Cyrex Array 5 is I think they call it a multi-tissue or multiple autoimmune reactivity screen. So it can look for multiple different target sites in your body, including your brain, your thyroid, etc. So when you look at my test specifically, and we look at the out of range section, you see myelin basic protein being out of range here, along with osteocytes, which is interesting. And I don't know necessarily, osteocytes, I believe, they're produced in the bone marrow. They have something to do with bone itself, and I don't really know how that applies, but specifically I wanted to show the myelin basic protein. So I had elevation specific to target sites in my brain, the myelin basic protein. So I thought that those were two interesting findings, how this review study kind of looked at some of those different potential mechanisms, an active virus, HHV-6, and then autoimmunity toward brain tissue, and how those two particular things can kind of be a marker for your actual overall cognitive function. So that was interesting in and of itself. And then lastly, again, this review article kind of talks about a lot of different things, but one of the things I wanted to talk about was the gut itself. So if you're anything like me, got COVID, and again, it turned into long COVID, ME/CFS, and you may have had some major issues with your gut function compared to pre-COVID. Again, maybe some of that is the virus itself, hibernating in the gut and replicating and staying around for a long time, causing all different types of dysfunction. But the question is kind of maybe, what can you do with it? So if we look at let's see, what page is this? Page 8, in the section called microbiome dysbiosis, it kind of talks about some of the issues in the gut itself. But it's here, this section itself, because sometimes the question is, well, what can you do with all of this? Let's say you find all the different mechanisms. What are the next steps? What can you do with it? And I think something that's interesting is this section here. So it says changes in gut-derived neurotransmitters like serotonin, GABA, and dopamine may underline the fatigue, cognitive dysfunction, and mood disorders. Notably, low gut serotonin has been linked to hippocampal atrophy in long COVID. Short-chain fatty acids, particularly butyrate, help to preserve the barrier integrity and modulate immune responses. Butyrate also promotes regulatory T cell development. Reduced short-chain fatty acid levels may impair Treg induction, and dysbiosis has been associated with Th17 Treg imbalance, which may exacerbate systemic inflammation and neuroimmune symptoms. Low serum butyrate correlates with microglial activation, further linking gut dysbiosis to brain inflammation. So long story short, they're finding that low level of short-chain fatty acids, and again, I'm not a medical professional, but short-chain fatty acids are byproducts that are produced from your gut when you consume, let's say, fiber or probiotics. Specifically when you consume dietary fibers, your body will then your gut will ferment those fibers and produce a compound called short-chain fatty acids. And under that umbrella of short-chain fatty acids, one of those is a compound called butyrate. And they're explaining in this article how butyrate helps to preserve the barrier integrity of the gut and modulate immune responses. Now, specifically what it can help to promote is something called regulatory T cells. Now, regulatory T cells, again, I'm not a medical professional, but from my understanding, regulatory T cells are kind of like what they sound like. They're immune cells that help to regulate your immune response. And in the case of autoimmunity, a lot of times your regulatory T cells can be really, really diminished, and your body's unable to regulate immune responses, and your body might have inappropriate immune responses to things like brain tissue or any other tissue, thyroid, your gut, adrenals, any other tissue in your body. Your body might not have a great job of regulating that response and calming it down. And one of those reasons why might be because of having gut change from COVID, reducing short chain fatty acids and butyrate. So one of the potential things you might consider doing, this is something I'm doing now, is increasing butyrate through supplementation. So there's lots of different companies that produce butyrate. I've been taking a sodium butyrate product, which seems to be helping along with probiotics, and also increasing my fiber intake from consuming things like psyllium husks, acacia fiber, different things like that to help try and increase short chain fatty acids, to help increase butyrate, to hopefully increase the T regulatory cells to calm down the immune response to things like myelin basic protein, right? So it's kind of an interesting way where you think, well, if my body's having an inappropriate immune response to my brain tissue, my myelin basic protein, creating cognitive dysfunction or at least contributing to it, well, maybe one of the things I could do is try to increase my gut butyrate levels to help increase the T regulatory cells, right? The immune cells that help to modulate the immune response to hopefully lower the attack on the brain, right? There's a lot more in this article, but I just thought those were some interesting things to do, where if you had the ability to do an antibody screen using something like a Cyrex or something else to say, hey, I'm dealing with long COVID, I'm dealing with ME/CFS, is there a chance that I'm currently dealing with some type of autoimmunity to my brain causing this cognitive dysfunction? Maybe alongside that, you do some sort of viral panel to see, hey, do I have an IgM response to any, like an HHV-6 or an Epstein-Barr virus that might be contributing to some of my fatigue as well? And then as kind of like a lifestyle approach, again, maybe considering doing something like supplementing with butyrate or fiber probiotics to try and help increase short chain fatty acids to sort of manage those things. There's probably a long list of other things to do that you could do, but I just thought this review article was interesting to kind of look at and talk about, and again, bring some of my personal findings. Again, my personal findings, you might not have, you might do blood work and you might not have any autoimmunity or any issues with acute viral problems, but I just thought it was interesting to, as I was reading this article, to go and reference my own blood work, my own personal blood work, just to see if there was any findings there, and those were some of the things I found. So anyway, I'll put this article into the description below in case you want to look at it. But again, take everything I said with a grain of salt. I'm just someone like you that's currently going through a tough time in life with long COVID, ME/CFS, and trying to figure out what in the world to do. And I thought, maybe not deep diving, or just as a very high level, maybe looking at some of the research, recording at least some of the things I found and I think are interesting, and creating a video could help maybe some of you with your own journey. So again, hope it helps. Again, I'm not a professional here, but I thought it might be interesting to record this, and I'll see you on the next video.